What's happening, everybody? Welcome to another episode here, the Side Guys Football Forum. I'm one of your co-hosts on the side, joined as always by my good friend, my good buddy, the other half of the Side Guys, Tad the Side. And Tad, as of recording, we're only 2 days away from the NFL season officially kicking off. I mean, we've been waiting a long time for this, and it's finally here. And it's like, I can't be more excited for the season to begin finally.
It is the first time in a while I've actually been like truly optimistic about my Colts. So I'm very happy.
It's actually funny because as sort of like our production for today's episode, I went back and listened to our episode from last year. And yeah, you were clearly a very pessimistic Colts fan last year. You were very much in the boat of like, this is going to be a terrible year. We're not going to do anything. And it's just like, yeah, this is very different opinions. 1 year. 1 year. Yeah, exactly.
That's the beauty of the NFL, man. 1 year can make all the difference. And the thing is, we didn't even change that much. We're bringing back essentially the same roster, but I'm happy with it. And we got Joe Flacco. We got Flacco magic on our side.
Yeah, it's crazy what 1 year can do. And yeah, hopefully it will work out a lot better than it did last year. But I mean, with all that said, you're still very close to clinching a final spot in the AFC playoffs there. So, I mean, yeah, now hopefully, Anthony Richardson stay healthy and you guys are good to go. But we're going to cover all of that.
Hopefully we have running backs who can catch.
That's true as well. But yeah, we're going to cover a lot of that. We're going to be doing our 2024 NFL season preview in today's episode. So, I mean, we're going to go through so many different things that we covered in last year's episode and previous episodes as well. Just like, our predictions for end of the year award winners. We're going to go through, some potential coach firings as the offseason hits. And of course, we'll predict our playoff teams and our Super Bowl matchup as well. But guys, with the season kicking off, this is the best time to get in with our sponsors at Underdog Fantasy. I mean, you still have chances to draft their fantasy football, like you could do their best ball format there, so you still have a chance to do that a couple days before that, obviously. But the best thing they can use Underdog Fantasy for is the betting aspect. So, I mean, you got the NFL season kicking off this weekend. We already got the college football season kicked off last weekend. The NBA season will be tipping off in about a month. You got the final, month or so about the WNBA season. We got the US Open for the tennis going on right now. So, I mean, you name it, you can bet on it right now. There's a ton of things you can be betting on. Whatever you're comfortable with, all you have to do is make anywhere between 2 and 8 different prop bet picks. The more picks, the more potential money you can win. And Underdog Fantasy wants to get you into the action. They give us a promo code. We're going to share with you. That promo code is DESAI, DESAI. You could double up on your initial deposit of $10 or more, up to $500, courtesy of our good friends at Underdog Fantasy. So if you were to put in that max amount, $500, using our promo code DESAI, DESAI, you can get that match dollar for dollar. You can bet with up to $1,000 on their betting platform. You can use the website, very easy to use. You can use the apps both on iPhone, Apple devices, as well as Android devices. Very easy to use there as well. So guys, get in the action. NFL season's right around the corner. You can make some bets. We will be providing weekly bets as well with the Underdog Fantasy platform. And yeah, guys, get into the action. It should be a ton of fun. That promo code, once again, is DESAI, DESAI. Double up on your initial deposit of $10 or more, up to $500. So should be a lot of fun this year.
And remember, listeners and viewers, when it comes to Florida State, start betting that under.
My God, yeah, 2 straight weeks with the upset. That is tough.
I was in the middle of my fantasy draft, and my friends were like, oh, Florida State's about to lose. I was like, wait, what? I was like, there's no way.
Yeah, losing 2 straight weeks. Once in Ireland, and now crossing back into their home country, losing here too. So, yeah, but we're not here to talk about college football. We're here to get into our NFL preview here, sort of just, discussing everything that we sort of talked about there. So let's start, Tad, with our award winner predictions here. So I want you to give me your thoughts on who's going to win the MVP this year,
okay,
the offensive player of the year this year, and the defensive player of the year this year. So who do you got for those 3?
Not very sexy picks, but I'm going to go for it. MVP, I think Patrick Mahomes gets his title back. I think that this is arguably the best receiving core. I mean, I would be interested to hear your thoughts on this. I think this is the best receiving core he's had of his entire career. If you look at Kelsey, Rice, Hollywood Brown, Xavier Worthy, who, by the way, went shockingly early in my fantasy draft last night. I just think there's a lot to work with there. And I think that, Andy Reid is, I still think, despite his recent success, is probably the most underrated NFL head coach of all time. I mean, this guy is up there in the likes of Belichick in my mind. And I don't think a whole lot of people consider him that high. So I think that Reid is looking at what was clearly the weaker side of the ball last year and knows, okay, we need to do a lot to fix this. And I think that they probably have done that in the offseason. So I think that Mahomes is going to come back. He's going to come back ferocious. And as long as he can stay healthy, I think that he's really, set up for success this year. And unfortunately, spoiler alert, but I think we're going to see the Chiefs in the Super Bowl for the third straight year?
Yeah, third straight year.
Yeah. So I think Mahomes is going to get that offensive player of the year. Again, not very sexy, but just stick with what I think it's going to be. I think it's Tyreek Hill. I think this is a match made in heaven between this offensive system and his play style. Is he going to have as good of a year as he did last year? Probably not. But I think he's still going to put up, if not close to, definitely over 1,500 yards. I'll throw him 8 or 9 touchdowns along the way. And I think it's just going to be exactly like what happened last year, where it's like, yes, he's the easy pick, but his stats are so good and he's clearly so valuable to this team. There's really nowhere else to, give this award. No one else to give this award to. The one wrenching those plans is Jalen Waddle. If Jalen Waddle, not that he's disappointed, but if he steps up to the plate and truly becomes a true number 2 consistent receiver, Tyreek Hill's not going to have those stats. Defensive player of the year was torn between a couple guys, but ultimately I got to go with, and I don't know why I'm calling my boy, but I like him, TJ Watt.
Oh,
I think this is TJ Watt's year. And the only reason I put him above other people is I think he has more interception potential. So I think he'll finish with around 15 to 20 sacks, somewhere in that range, with 2-3 picks. Obviously throwing a couple forced fumbles in there. I think those picks is what's going to give him the nod over some other very deserving players.
Those are solid picks for sure. And honestly, we're in agreement when it comes to the MVP and the offensive player of the year, because I think just with the MVP award, I think it's just, I was looking at the
best
field.
I
was looking at the field as far as who could potentially win the award over Patrick Mahomes. And it was unless Aaron Rodgers has a former, he puts up monster numbers similar to what we saw back in Green Bay, then he could be in the conversation. If CJ Stroud can build on what he did last year,
he's interesting.
He's in the conversation for sure. If Joe Burrow, lots of optimism surrounding Cincinnati. So it's if Joe Burrow can sort of live up to that optimism and he puts Cincinnati on the map, then it's he's in that conversation. But it's still just a lot of question marks for me, where it's everything that you laid out. It is still a bit of a question mark to see whether this receiving core that they, changed up, obviously, by bringing in Hollywood Brown and drafting Xavier Worthy, obviously, and then, having the older Travis Kelce now. So it's just is this going to be, a very dominant factor? A lot of people are saying that it will be, but there's still no guarantee, obviously. They've had rookie receivers on their roster before that there was a lot of optimism around, and it never lived up to the hype. So, I mean, it's we'll see what that'll happen with Xavier Worthy, or whether he will actually live up to the hype there. But it's hard for me to go against anybody besides Mahomes right now with this early in the season, because I think he just has the odds stacked in his favor right now. I think that's the biggest thing.
I think you're absolutely right with that. And another thing to consider too is, because I actually like Joe Burrow as a dark horse MVP candidate, if he can stay healthy, of course. But the thing with that is, let's look at their divisions, right? You play, each divisional opponent twice. The AFC North is arguably, I personally don't think so, but I think some may argue that the AFC North is the most loaded division in football. They're certainly up there.
I actually feel the same way as you, because last year I was saying that's we could see 4 teams from all 4 teams, not just 4 teams, but all 4 teams for the AFC North in the playoffs. And we almost had that. The Bengals fell just a little short from accomplishing that feat. But this year I actually feel the opposite. I only think there's probably 1 or 2 teams in the AFC North that I feel confident about.
I agree. And so I think that division's going to, or at least those players are going to kind of cannibalize each other from winning the award. And then you look at the AFC West, and I think that's a fairly easy argument to make. They're probably the worst division in football heading into this year. So I think that, yeah, again, you just look at it like, well, who has an easier 8 games? Or 9 games. I forget what 17. This math is hard. But point being is, I think that being in the easier division is a massive, massive advantage when it could very well be a razor thin race.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. So I think he sort of is the favorite right now, and that's the favorite courtesy of Bovada as well. He is at plus 525, the best odds to win the MVP. And it's like, if you look at the guys that also have triple digit odds, you got CJ Stroud, who I already mentioned, at plus.
He's too young. I feel like the voters are just going to be like, no, we need to see it a third time. Like, when was the last time we saw someone this young win? Was it Patrick Mahomes? I think it might have been.
In 2018, because he was a rookie in 2017. And so then, he won it the very next year. But he had 50 touchdowns and over close to 5,000 yards, right? If I remember correctly. So,
and he had that.
I don't know if CJ Stroud could put up those numbers.
Well, not even just that, because I think he could put up close to those numbers, but also Mahomes had that electricity. He had that excitement, he had those Sports Center plays. And not saying Stroud doesn't, but he's more of your traditional type quarterback. So I think
he quote unquote came out of nowhere, because it's like, if you look at his rookie year, he didn't play his entire rookie year. He only played that very last game where they sat Alex Smith because they were already comfortable for their playoff seeding. So it's like, we saw him and he was just like, it didn't look like the Patrick Mahomes that we see now. So everybody's like, oh, are we going to trust this guy? Like, did the Chiefs make a mistake trading up for this guy? And then obviously he came in the next day and absolutely balled out. Everybody's like, oh yeah, Patrick Mahomes is the guy now. But with CJ Stroud, exactly like you said, we see that electricity last year already. So it's like, now it's like, take what you already did last year. Now you have to improve upon it. So it's like, I don't know if we're going to see that great of improvement. That's the biggest thing.
He's going to have to do like a 180 behind the back throw for like 50 yards to even be in the conversation.
It's going to be crazy. It's going to be crazy. We're going to talk about Joe Burrow. He's at plus 800. And then Josh Allen is also plus 800. But we're talking about the Bills. It's terrible. I don't feel confident about the Bills this year. So it's just like, that worries me about Josh Allen's odds to win the MVP award as well. And then
get your shit together, Bovada.
And then the next closest would be Jordan Love with plus 1,000. And, if things go well with Green Bay, he could be in the conversation there, but I don't think he's going to put up crazy numbers to sort of warrant winning the MVP award. So, for me, I think Patrick Mahomes is the easy choice. And Offensive Player of the Year, I brought this up during our betting preview episode. I picked one of my favorite odds this year, courtesy of Bovada, was I like Tyreek Hill to win Offensive Player of the Year with the odds of plus 600. And I'm just going to double check the odds here to make sure nothing has changed here. But it's actually plus 700. Plus 700. My mistake.
Bovada, you got your shit together very quickly. Good for you.
So, he is the second favorite. Christian McCaffrey is the favorite right now to repeat with plus 650. The odds are in his favor. But, I think we talked about this. The NFL, top 100 players in the NFL. This is the first time we had a wide receiver. That wide receiver was Tyreek Hill. I could see him putting close to 2,000 receiving yards. He's had back-to-back 1,700-yard seasons already. So, it's like I could see him maybe taking another step up, being in this offense longer. We already saw that viral video about Tua Tagovailoa talking about like how Brian Flores was negative on him, but Mike McDaniel's nothing but supportive of him. So it's like, maybe he's going to see a step up. It's like, we're going to see more Tyreek Hill offense from him, but just, he is my favorite there to win the Offensive Player of the Year. Things are trending in the right direction for him, but where we differ is the Defensive Player of the Year award. I went in a different direction here.
Okay.
I went to the Las Vegas Raiders. I'm going to go to Max Crosby. I think
I'm not going to lie. He was my second favorite to win it.
Yeah, I think he's got a good shot. So he's had double-digit sacks in back-to-back years now. You look at the additions that they made. They paid a ton of money to Christian Wilkins to anchor that interior of the defensive line. But they also have two promising young guns on the opposite side of Max Crosby. They got Tyree Wilson, who they drafted in the first round at Texas Tech. Was it last year? It might have been 2 years ago. And then another guy that they drafted in the later parts of the draft, Malcolm Kuntz, is also a very developmental player there. So it's like they got some good pieces on that defensive line that can give Max Crosby some support. But we also know Max Crosby can do it on himself because he did it by himself for so long. But I think now with the added support, I think he can finally get to the quarterback a little bit more, because defenses may have to start paying attention to these other guys, which will give Crosby some more rushing lanes to get to the quarterback a little bit more, generate a lot of sacks for sure. So for me, I could see him winning the Defensive Player of the Year award this year.
It wouldn't shock me, because actually Crosby is my pick for sack leader of the year.
Oh, okay.
And so I think he's going to finish with more sacks than TJ Watt. But again, going back to my defense of him, I think Watt's going to get the extra interception or so, because Crosby, while amazing, he can definitely kick my ass halfway up the football field. He's like just purely a pass rusher. You can't really drop him back in coverage. I know they do sometimes if that's not his strength. TJ Watt is clearly an all-around player. So I think that's why Watt gets the nod. And also, maybe this is just like, anecdotal evidence I'm using, but it feels like even if you have a lot of sack numbers, this happened, God, like almost a decade ago at this point. But I'm trying to remember, there was some player who had like 18, 19 sacks, but it might have been Chandler Jones. But his team didn't do so hot that year. And that just seems kind of like the thing of like winning any of these big 3 awards, your team needs to do well. Otherwise, you're not going to
That's the big thing for sure. I think that plays a factor as well. But we'll get into as far as team performance a little bit later in today's episode. But for you got Patrick Mahomes winning MVP, Tyreek Hill Offensive Player of the Year, and TJ Watt winning Defensive Player of the Year. For me, I agree. Patrick Mahomes at MVP, Tyreek Hill Offensive Player of the Year. But I got Max Crosby as Defensive Player of the Year. So let's get to the rookies here, Tad. So give me your Offensive Rookie of the Year and the Defensive Rookie of the Year.
Offensive Rookie of the Year might be a controversial pick.
Okay.
Torrey Taylor, punter for the Chicago Bears. Is he offensive or defensive? I didn't even know how to make that joke.
That's a very good question. Like, if you have that great of a season as a special teamer, it's like, would you qualify for either of these awards? Because I
feel like that's gotta be defense.
It's not either of them because you're a special teamer. So it's like, that's very interesting.
I feel like it's gotta be defense. I feel like defense and special teams are always kind of like lumped together.
Usually I would link that together. Yeah. So, but yeah, I don't know.
Maybe it's just because we're the fantasy football guys. We're doing that.
Maybe.
But either way, so no, Torrey Taylor is the, no, I'm just kidding. I was tempted to go Caleb Williams, but I think that this, again, with those electricity plays and a lot of this, you got to factor in the human factor of, who are the voters most excited by? And I really think after a pretty solid preseason, and thank God, because I made some really big comments about this guy during the draft process, but it looks like he showed up. I think it's going to be Jaden Daniels with the Washington Commanders.
Interesting.
I think his rushing numbers are going to be better than Caleb Williams by a good amount. I think he's, the most important thing too is the Commanders' offensive line, while still not great, massively improved from last year. So I don't think he's going to have a Sam Howell type of season. I don't blame Howell for leading the league in interceptions. That dude was sacked like almost at David Carr level numbers. So I don't think they're going to have a repeat of that this year. I think that he's going to make enough plays and have good enough stats to really, get there for Offensive Rookie of the Year. It's going to be tight, but I think he's going to get the nod. For Defensive Rookie of the Year, I swear to God, I'm not being a homer when I do this. Latu. I really think it's him. I really think it's going to be him. Because you look at all the corners, a lot of those corners, and I know he's like a safety corner hybrid, but like Cooper DeJean is a great example of this. Good player. I think in a couple of years, going to be very, very good for the Eagles. I don't see him succeeding right away. Same thing with Quinyon Mitchell. I think a lot of these rookie corners, Terrion Arnold is another example. They've landed in great spots. I don't know how many opportunities they're going to get to really shine right off the bat. You look at the Colts situation, they had, why do I do this to myself? Samson Ebukam?
Ebukam, yep.
Damn it. Close. That was close enough for me. It's like for me, it's like horseshoes. It's like I was in the area. Actually, it's more like hand grenades, but I like the visual of horseshoes better. Hey, horseshoes, Colts. I didn't even do that on purpose. How about that?
There you go.
There we go. I'm a writer, baby. I'm a writer. I think that with Ebukam, whatever. Him, the former Rams guy, that dude.
He is him.
The Big Lebowski, the dude. I think with him, Samson, we'll call him Samson. With Samson out, I think
now we're getting religious on the podcast.
We're gonna roll with it. It's the best we can do. Make the best of a bad situation, which is me as a co-host, my man.
Oh yeah.
Latu's been forced in a elevated role. I'm not saying like key role because I don't think he's gonna be like an every down pass rusher, but I actually think that increases his chances for better stats as a rookie because being brought in as a situational rusher, you don't have to worry about development as much. It's just like, hey, see the dude with the ball? Yeah, go get him. And you see that a lot with these rookie pass rushers where they will just rack up the sack numbers. They'll be like, oh my God, this rookie had 8 or 9 sacks. How many total tackles? 15. They're just like, wait, what? Like, what happened there? And I honestly think that's the kind of season Latu's going to have, but that's good enough to get Defensive Rookie of the Year.
No, I agree with that. And we're actually in consensus with both of these awards as well, because it's like, I look at Because the thing that, worries me, like Caleb Williams is 100% the front runner right now, but I think the thing that makes me pick Jaden Daniels over Caleb Williams is that I think the offense is going to, not that it won't flow through Caleb Williams, but just like it's going to be more of the other guys in the Chicago Bears offense. So we're going to see more DJ Moore, obviously. Robodunze is going to flash out there. Obviously, the big acquisition of Keenan Allen, DeAndre Swift is going to be a part of it. And Caleb Williams is just there to sort of corral everybody. Whereas when I look at Washington, I think we're going to see very similar things that what we saw when Cliff Kingsbury took over in Arizona with Kyler Murray, where it's like it's going to be Jaden Daniels doing a lot of the offense for him. Obviously, he's got some gifted weapons, obviously, there with Terry McLaurin. They brought over Zach Ertz, and they had Brian Robinson Jr. and Austin Eckler. But it's just like, I don't have as much confidence in his playmakers compared to Jaden Daniels, whereas in Chicago, I have a lot more confidence in his playmakers compared to him itself. So he just has to, like, make sure things just don't go bad, and he'll probably be like in contention to win the Rookie of the Year award. Whereas like Jaden Daniels, he's going to have to do more. And because of that, we're going to see, like you brought up, that electricity, that sort of, crazy, magnificent plays. There's like, oh my God, he's going to be in the SE top 10, those sorts of plays that we'll see from Jaden Daniels more often, which will be like, oh, because he is just a little bit more athletic and dynamic, electric. I think those things will make him more of a candidate, an appealing candidate to win this award. So that's why I sort of side with Jaden Daniels over Caleb Williams as far as winning Offensive Rookie of the Year. And honestly, for Latu, like when I was watching this guy, as far as like his draft film and just like everything, I was just like, whoever lands him, I think he's my pick to win Defensive Player of the Year. So landed with your Colts, I was just like, he just has that skill level where it's just like, I think he's going to go out there and dominate. You look at 2022, that's the last year that we had a non-defensive end win the Defensive Rookie of the Year award. That was Sauce Gardner who won it, obviously, there. But the year prior to that, Micah Parsons won unanimously as the Defensive Rookie of the Year, racking up 13 sacks and just being as dominant as he was. So it's like, I'm not saying that Latu is going to put up those types of numbers, but I think for me, in that sort of underrated Colts defense, because we both talked about this Colts defense being a little bit underrated and they could surprise some people. So with that, I think that Latu could be sort of at that forefront there and generate a lot of pressures and obviously get a lot of good numbers as well to sort of back up the claim of winning the Defensive Rookie of the Year. So yeah, I agree with you on both fronts here.
All right, we got to spice up this segment a little bit because we can't both have the same pick. So I'm going to put you on the spot here. If you want me to go first, I can. Okay. On either side of the ball or both sides of the ball, if you're feeling real brave, who's a dark horse guy that could surprise people if he wins?
Are we talking about just rookies?
Just rookies.
So I was actually going to go in this direction, but then I was like, you know what? I feel a lot more confident with this pick of Latu than going with my dark horse candidate. But we brought this up before as far as like when we did our IDP episode, you're like, I'm a little down on Micah Parsons this year because Sam Williams got hurt off the defensive line. And so it's like, he's a key contributor for that defense. But because of that, I think the rookie that they drafted this year out of Western Michigan, Marshawn Kneeland, I think I've been hearing a lot of good things. I've been reading a lot of reports about he's just been killing it at camp. He's going to get himself some good reps during the season as well. And if they use him a little bit more because Sam Williams is now out for the entire year, I could see him being a good 1-2 combo punch with Michael Parsons throughout the entire season. I know we probably talked about them probably using Michael Parsons more as a rusher this year, but I could see some situations where it's like, you know what? We don't want to overload Michael Parsons this year. Let's make sure we drop him back, a little bit. Let's keep him off the field a little bit sometimes. So it's like, I think this is where we could see a little bit more Marshawn Kneeland. So yeah, he is my dark horse on the defensive side for sure.
Okay, I got 3 offensive guys. Let me know which
3 offensive guys. All right, let's hear it.
All right. So a not so hot take, a lukewarm take, and a very hot take. Which order do you want me to go in?
Coldest to let's go hottest to coldest.
Hottest to coldest. Okay. Yeah. All right. My super hot take is Jonathan Brooks.
Okay. Interesting.
Lukewarm take.
Courtesy of good friends of Bavada, he currently has plus 5,000 odds to win Offensive Rookie of the Year. So it's a pretty good take.
Lukewarm take, Bo Nix.
Bo Nix is currently at plus 900, so he is one of the favorites.
I'm getting better. I'll be interested for this guy. Kind of, colder take, Ladd McConkey.
Ladd McConkey is plus 2,500. So I'd probably say that's probably your medium pick there. Bo Nix is actually your safest.
That's name value, though. That's what's happening there.
It might be.
But yeah, just real quick, I think Ladd McConkey, we talked about on the podcast before, his target numbers, I think are going to be way higher than people think. If he can convert more of those into touchdowns than I'm expecting, I would not be shocked at all to see him. In fact, I drafted him on my fantasy team last night, I believe. Did I get McConkey? I'm trying to remember.
You did.
Yeah, it was a blur. That draft was a blur. It lasted 3 hours, but it was a blur. So yeah, Ladd McConkey wouldn't shock me if he's in the running. Bo Nix has looked a lot better. Not that I was a Bo Nix hater going in the draft, but he was one of my bigger question marks. But damn, he's looked good in Sean Payton's offense, and that's exactly the name that interests me in Bo Nix. It's not Bo Nix, it's Sean Payton. Sure, like if anything can get something out of this kid, he's a slightly inaccurate quarterback with a rocket arm. Gee, where have I heard that one before with Sean Payton? And before people are like, no one called Drew Brees inaccurate. Go back to his Chargers days. That was kind of a knock on him, especially after that shoulder injury. But hot take is Jonathan Brooks. I really think, and obviously this is the biggest if Carolina can get that offense together and Jonathan Brooks comes off the PUP list and gets over 1,000 yards, let's say over 6 or 7 rushing touchdowns, and, with a quarter of his games missing, that's a very strong case for Rookie of the Year. Will he be able to pull that off with a Carolina offensive line that I actually think is underrated? I think that Carolina offensive line is better than people give it credit for, but still I understand the hesitancy around that, but it would not shock me if Jonathan Brooks was like a absolute killer once he comes back.
Before we move off of this, I'm very surprised that neither of us went with Marvin Harrison Jr. Is there a reason that you didn't decide to go with it?
I think it's funny because he was wide receiver 4 off my board. Not off my board, but off, in my draft last night. And I was very surprised at that. Well, one, it was a Cardinals fan who nominated him, but shout out to Jeremy, by the way. I hope he works out. But it's nothing against him. I don't like Kyler Murray as a quarterback still. And I especially don't believe Kyler Murray will ever play a full NFL season again. And so it's, and they cut Desmond Ridder, right? So who's their backup now?
I think it's still Clayton Tune, right?
Oh, good God. That's why. Right there.
So.
That is why. Right there. That's why.
Clayton Tune double check that right now.
I want to say Tulane. Was he Tulane?
Clayton Tune was Houston, right? University of Houston.
I remember it was one of those like Southwestern, Eastern schools, whatever.
But yeah, no, I was correct. It is Clayton Tune. He is currently the backup.
God, how bad must Desmond Ridder have been?
He was drafted out of the University of Houston. I had that one right too. Wow. So yeah.
Yeah, no, so that's why. Clayton Tune, 2 words.
No, that's fair. That's fair. Yeah, I think I just have a little bit more pessimism with the Arizona offense overall. Like, I'm not doubting that Kyler Murray has the skill level. If he's healthy, he could be dominant.
Oh, if he's healthy, 100%.
That's the thing that sort of worries me. I don't know if they made significant improvements on their offensive line. So it's just like, that's where it sort of worries me overall with that offense. So it's like, yeah, Marvin Harrison will look good at a lot of times, but just overall to be in the race for Offensive Rookie of the Year, that's where it sort of worries me a little bit, Tad. So let's get to the final 2 awards that we want to make predictions for: Comeback Player of the Year and Coach of the Year.
Comeback Player of the Year, again, swear I'm not being a homer, but I think it's going to be Anthony Richardson.
Anthony Richardson, okay.
That would be pretty surprising. I know Rodgers is pretty heavy the favorite. It is going to take a lot to outdo him. Yeah. We discussed this on a couple of weeks ago on the podcast, though, is again, you got to factor in the human element to this. And apparently, I don't quite believe that report. I don't know if you saw this article that came out, I guess it was last week, where an anonymous NFL agent was like, oh, yeah, the Jets are a train wreck. Rodgers is pissing everyone off. Did you not see this report?
Yes, I did remember hearing about this, yes.
Yeah. I'll give you 3 guesses on whose agent that was, and you only need 1. So I don't fully believe that report, but I fully believe that report in about 8 or 9 weeks. Give it some time. Give it some hardship. Give it 3 straight losses. Then all of a sudden I'll be like, yeah, this is way more believable. So I think Rodgers is going to get some bad PR. I don't think he's going to have quite the season people are. I don't think he's going to have a bad season, especially with that offense. But I think it's almost reaching like, DeMar Hamlin levels where he's such a shoe-in. Yeah, that like the slightest little stumble, like, I don't know, a fake punt on 4th down. What were you doing, Buffalo? But anyway, the slightest stumble will cost him the award. And I think Richardson's the next man up. Young guy for sure, but again, kind of that Jaden Daniels thing we're talking about. He's going to have those electric plays where people are going to be like, oh my God, he's awesome. It's going to be like my reaction after the first 2 Colts games where I went from totally hating this guy, like you said at the beginning of the episode.
I remember
to like falling in love with him of just a couple plays, and not just runs. That's not what I mean by electric plays. Like some of those throws he was making was absolute fucking money. So as long as he can keep that going, and I think he can, I'm a believer. Call me Smash Mouth, baby.
All right. And Coach of the Year candidate?
Oh yeah, thank you. Coach of the Year, who was my pick for that? Right. Again, made it on the podcast a couple of weeks ago. Got, for consistency's sake, I got to keep it the same. I think it's going to be DeMeco Ryans. I think that this Houston Texans team is going to look like just really all around solid. I understand they have a very, very tough schedule. If I'm not mistaken, I think in terms of strength of schedule, they had the toughest schedule in the league. But that means that they can walk out of that with 4 or 5 wins. I think DeMeco Ryans has a very real chance after getting fucking robbed last year. He got robbed. Kevin Stefanski, get the hell out of here.
I think the Browns having the turnaround that they did towards the end of the year,
I don't care.
Honestly gave
Stefanski. That was Flacco.
Same reason as to why Joe Flacco won Comeback Player of the Year award. Obviously.
Well, that was well earned. Despite what Flacco says, that was very well earned.
For me, they kind of coincide with each other, and that's the Comeback Player of the Year award and the Coach of the Year award, both Jets. So I'm going with the obvious pick here with Aaron Rodgers. I think it's just, you look at just, past 2 years now, he's sort of been one of the bigger storylines of the entire NFL, like, coming back from
for the wrong reasons.
Yeah, for the wrong reasons, obviously, too. But just for him to only play 4 plays last year, 75 seconds, however you want to compute it that way. For him to just play the entire season, because he's been the face of the NFL for so long, I think naturally he's going to gravitate towards winning this award. I anticipate him playing at least 16 games this year. So it's I think he's going to be fully healthy. And so because of that, I think, like I said, it's the obvious pick, but I think it's going to go in that direction. It's going to go with him. He has the favorite odds on Bovada at plus 175. It's not a Damar Hamlin case, because I remember this tab, but the odds for
minus 200, wasn't he?
The odds for Damar Hamlin last year was minus 375, and then it was the field. The entire field at plus 450 or something like that. So that's how much of a shoe-in he was last year. But yeah, Aaron Rodgers at plus 175. He is currently the favorite courtesy of Bovada. So yeah, I'm going with the favorite here. And then Robert Saleh is actually not the favorite, but I think this Jets team, I think, having Aaron Rodgers under center, I think they're going to be a lot more composed. I think they're going to be a lot better. This was also one of my picks when we did our betting episode that I was like, I think the Jets are going to get over 11.5 wins. I think they'll be in that sort of territory there. And so it's you look at the Jets, they haven't made the playoffs, Tad, since 2010. So it's been over a decade.
I was 16 years old when the Jets last made the playoffs.
So that's half your life.
I just turned 30. Yeah, I just turned 30 a couple
That
days
is a
ago.
little less than half of your
insane.
life. Yeah, exactly.
Oh my God.
And they haven't won the division since even further. They haven't won the division since 2002. So I'm not going to say they're going to win the division. I think that's a little bit too optimism there, but I think they could clinch a wild card spot, make the playoffs. So with that, with Robert Saleh sort of turning things around there, with Aaron Rodgers there, I think with him taking the Jets to the playoffs, I think he's in the contention there. And my pick, I think he'd probably win the award as well. But yeah, DeMeco Ryans, strong case to win the award this year. But once again, I think it's that factor of same thing as to why we're sort of demeriting CJ Stroud to win the MVP award. It's you did so well last year. It sort of came out of nowhere. It's now you have to improve on that. So it's you have to win the division, make it maybe to the AFC title game possibly. But it's all the awards were decided way before that. So it's yeah, I really, DeMeco Ryans is a good candidate, obviously, but just, yeah, I think once again, it's that factor where it's okay, you did this. Now you need to do more than that. And so that's what make me is a little bit harder for him. Where it's with Robert Saleh, if your bar is just make the playoffs, it's when you're playing MLB The Show or Madden or whatever, where you're at the GM contract, it's your goal is above 500 or it's make the playoffs. It's that's not bad. So it's you do that, you're going to keep your job. So it's that's the same thing that I see here with Robert Saleh. It's make the playoffs and you'll keep your job and such. That's exactly what it is. So yeah, that's why I see Robert Saleh could win the Coach of the Year here.
That just happened to me in college football where I was the coach.
College football, that was the other guy.
Yeah. I was Wisconsin's head coach coming off 2 national titles.
Yeah.
And they were the expectation rose to get to the semifinals. I'm Jesus.
Yeah,
and exactly. Then Colorado offered me the job, and they were get 6 wins. I'm all right, Colorado. No, here we come.
I remember when I first started the game, I started Dynasty. I took over Liberty, and the goals every year was just 5 wins a season. I was okay, that's not bad at all. And then, yeah, obviously, the more you win, then the goals expectations realign. But just 5 wins, it's All right, that's doable.
Yeah.
So that's very similar here, where it's like you got a low bar, just make the playoffs. And yeah, I think he should be a front runner to win the award.
I'll tack on another requirement to it, but I do completely agree with both these picks. I'll tack on, I guess, 2 requirements on it. The first one is if the Jets make the playoffs, which you already said. Second one is if the Jets finish with a better record than the Texans. So that happens, Saleh's going to win Coach of the Year. 100% agree with that.
Easily.
If the Jets make the playoffs, if they finish with a better record than the Texans, and if Aaron Rodgers is healthy, you are 2 for 2, my friend. Rodgers is definitely winning that award.
Yeah.
Because you got to remember,
it's a lot of qualifiers.
A lot of these voters, I'm going to sound like a conspiracy nut here, but I swear to God, this is true. I watch SportsCenter whenever the Jets are good or the Knicks do anything remotely interesting.
It's hosted by Mike Greenberg. Of course, they're going to talk about the Jets.
Exactly. So, like, anytime any New York team is slightly good, ESPN and therefore the media freaks out because everyone just reacts to what ESPN does. So, yeah, the Jets are good. They're going to be in that, media, spotlight for the entire season. And that's just going to do nothing but help both their cases if they're good.
Yeah, I agree with that. So those are our award predictions here. Let's get to, we're talking about coaches here. We close out the segment there. So, let's get to something that we enjoy with this specific episode as well.
This is very sick of us to enjoy it, but I do enjoy it.
A little bit, but it's actually sort of fun to sort of
like
predict this. I don't know. But so we're going to predict potential head coach openings coming into play during the offseason or maybe even midseason. So, Tad, who do you predict will get fired either midseason or at the end of the season?
I think this is going to be a midseason guy. I think that this team is actually going to be in the running for first overall pick. Kind of because every year there's the surprise team where everyone's like, oh my God, like how is this team so bad all of a sudden? It just feels like this team's been buying, what's that saying where like buying borrowed time or whatever? Living on borrowed time. Living on borrowed time. Exactly. Because like I've been expecting them to be bad for so long because they're like $80 million over the cap. But somehow they still keep on being like, we're just good enough. And I am convinced that this is the year they finally run out of luck. And that's the New Orleans Saints. And it sucks. I know they were the most recent team to beat the Colts in the Super Bowl. But even then, I wasn't that upset. Because it was like, God damn it. If I'm going to lose to a team in the Super Bowl, this is the team to lose to.
They had everything working in their favor. So it's
it was
hard
like,
to root against
four,
them. I'm
4
sorry
years after Katrina.
Colts,
No, I was the same way. I was like, obviously I wanted us to win that. But like, look at Drew Brees. This kid had the headphones on. And you're just like, God damn it.
It was like the ultimate feel-good story.
Exactly. You're it's like if your college basketball team loses to the 16 seed that made it to like this Elite Eight, you're just like, okay, have it. Here you go. So anyway, so I am in no way a hater of the New Orleans Saints. I just really hate their roster right now. It's a lot of overpaid old guys, Kamara being the poster child for that. They're stuck with Derek Carr. A lot of people are like, oh, is this their final year with Derek Carr? They cannot get rid of him. They have to bring him back next year, at least to be a backup, because if they cut him, they owe him like $20 million. And that's the epitome of all the Saints' problems. So I cannot see New Orleans being a legitimate contender yet again on, nickel and diming their way through this shit. So I think that New Orleans has a real opportunity to be a very, very bad team. I don't think Dennis Allen will make it through the season.
Wow. Okay. So you think he's going to be a
I think it's going to be slightly past mid-season. I think it's going to be a Frank Reich situation where it's like week 5 and we're like, oh, holy shit, that was fast. Okay. I need to actually look this up while I'm talking. When is their bye week? Because if it's a late season bye week, that spells doom for Dennis Allen. And then while you're looking that up, my less flashy pick in my eyes, at least, is it would not shock me. And I would shock me if this was in season. I think this will be a postseason firing. Brian Dable. It just seems like I think the Giants are, kind of gearing up for just like a whole, like, wipe the slate clean, new GM, new head coach, kind of like, all right, we tried this regime for 2-3 years. That was a disaster. We're clearing house. I don't blame Dable whatsoever. I don't even really blame their GM. Their GM has drafted really well. He's just had shit luck. Like, who knew DeAndre Baker would end up being a total fucking idiot? So I don't blame anyone but Daniel Jones for this. But I think that Jones, Dable, and whatever the hell their GM is, I think they're all out the door after the season. Yeah. So Dable, postseason firing. Dennis Allen, midseason firing. Or you tell me, what part of the season is he getting fired?
Well, their bye week's not till week 12.
So Dennis Allen, REP, buddy. All right, week 12, mark your calendars.
Yeah.
What's their stretch of games going into that bye week?
So they're 5 games. Let's do 3 games. So the 3-game stretch heading into the bye week is they travel to Carolina, Then they play the Atlanta Falcons at home. Then they play the Cleveland Browns at home. And then they have
bye-bye. Because if you get upset by Carolina, and they're definitely going to lose those next two. So, woo. See you, Dennis.
So I don't doubt that Dennis Allen is a candidate to possibly get fired, but I don't think New Orleans will operate well. They'll midway fire him. I think he'll probably be an offseason firing as well. So regardless of how horrible they're doing, like he has to completely lose the locker room for them to fire him mid-season. So I see him as an offseason firing potentially as well. But I like that candidate for sure, because that was my pick last year. Actually, I had Dennis Allen as like a guy that could get fired, and he somehow kept his job. But I will back again here. Dicey.
I'll give you credit where it's due. Is he is known as the rah guy. That's how he saved his job last year. Was like, well, that offense was really bad. That defense was really good and like way overperformed. And so that is the only reason, because this dude can coach a defense. I'm not gonna.
It's true. He is a defensive guy.
Yeah, like he's a great defensive coach. But no, you're exactly right. Maybe that rah shit saves him for a couple weeks.
Exactly. So both good candidates there. I'm gonna go with the reasoning behind this is that I think both these candidates have they're a little bit on the older side, and just they haven't had the success that maybe both these franchises were hoping.
Don't fire Pete Carroll. Oh, wait a minute.
So I'm actually going with the Jacksonville Jaguars. I'm going to say Doug Peterson is a candidate to get fired here. So with the Jaguars, I don't think they made any significant moves. I mean, they obviously did sign Gabe Davis in the offseason, and they drafted Brian Thomas Jr. out of LSU here. But just overall, it's just like we didn't see any great improvement from Trevor Lawrence outside of that first year with Doug Peterson. So it's like with that big contract that they paid him, it's like we really need to see this Jaguars team be in contention, even just for the division crown. Like I could understand that's like, okay, maybe you're not going to make a playoff run, but it's like just to be in contention for the division crown, I need to see that from this Jacksonville team. Otherwise, maybe they'll go in a different direction and they'll be like, okay, we paid Trevor Lawrence all this money. We need a guy who could sort of coach him up a little better. Go with maybe a little bit one of those, young and upcoming coaches, something like that there. So I could see the Jaguars sort of going in a different direction as far as just to change things up and just, freshen things up with that franchise there. And then the other one, I made this pick last year as well. I'm going to roll it back here because there's a lot more eyeballs on this market for sure. The Dallas Cowboys with Mike McCarthy. Because, I mean, getting to the playoffs, I think, is just not good enough anymore for McCarthy because he's got to the playoffs every single year that he's been there in Dallas. But the problem is, it's been the constant problem with Dallas Cowboys coaches since the 1996 season. You haven't gone to the NFC Championship game. So it's like, it's good that you got to the wild card round and the divisional round, but especially at what happened last year, Tad, where it's like they won the division.
That game, sorry to interrupt, single-handedly made Jordan Love one of the highest paid football players of all time.
Exactly. It really just totally shifted things as far as like we expected the Cowboys to be dominant and like this was going to be Dak's sort of calling card to sort of get paid in the offseason, but it was the exact opposite, where he was just horrendous. The Packers just absolutely obliterated them, ran them off the field, and just exactly like I said, that led to Jordan Love getting paid the contract that he got. But I think that's the biggest factor for the Cowboys. It's like they need to go further than the divisional round. They need to get that championship game. And 100% if he gets the Super Bowl, obviously, then that's, Cowboys fans will be rejoicing. Everybody will be happy. Mike McCarthy will keep his job for a lot longer. But it's just like, that's the thing that I fear here with the Cowboys. It's just, they get to the playoffs, they just don't go far enough. So it's like, being regular season heroes is not enough. You need to get to the playoffs and then make a deep run. And just unfortunately with some of the changes, losing Dan Quinn, I think that switch to Mike Zimmer is going to hurt this defense more than people think it will. And I think it's just overall, it's going to hurt things a lot more. And then obviously we've already talked about the backfield so many times. Where it's just like, so bad. You're trusting this backfield to Zeke Elliott.
Wait, it's 2018. Dalvin Cook's going to be good.
Yeah, Zeke Elliott and Dalvin Cook and Rico Dowdle. It's like, that is not a backfield that really gives me a lot of faith. That's like, oh yeah, this is going to change the offense. It's going to be so much better than what we saw last year. Sorry, I just don't see it. So those are my two candidates. I could very much see, in the offseason. I already talked about it. Bold prediction. They'll let Micah Parsons walk. They'll give Dak the bag, and they'll get a young and up-and-coming coach to coach Dak up to let's get this team further than divisional round. But I see those two candidates, Doug Peterson and Mike McCarthy, potential firings in the offseason.
Okay, so we're under January 10th until we start hearing Lincoln Riley to Dallas rumors?
Oh, yeah.
Of course.
If not sooner than that.
Oh, God. Can't wait for
December.
that shit.
When we get the announcements of the playoff bracket or whatever, and USC's in there,
so
they're gonna be
annoying.
like, "All right,
Well,
Lincoln Riley's gonna make his
yeah,
USC
Lincoln-
run in the college football playoffs, and then he's gonna go to Dallas." Like, I could see that very much happening.
Lincoln Riley, maybe throw like a James Franklin in there, like some like fucking college football coach. So yeah, 3 things about your pick. 1, I'm gonna call early dibs. I don't think Peterson gets fired this year.
Okay.
I think if the Jags miss the playoffs, which is a very real opportunity, they're going to hold on to him for one more year, but that dude's seat is going to be hot next year. So dibs on him being my pick for next year. Okay. Yeah, so dibs on that.
Yeah, all right, fair.
2 with McCarthy. Here, see, my friend, here's the thing about living in Dallas that you have to realize. These people are so sick of Jerry Jones, finally, because this man, he's just not completely there. Especially after the recent comments he's made. Like, I'm sorry, I'm kind of like half joking, but also like, somebody just needs to take the car keys away from him. Because I think it's just going to be, like you said, it's the same shit. It's fucking Groundhog's Day down here. Yes. I don't care. I get a lot of enjoyment out of it. But I'm telling you, here's what's going to happen is because McCarthy, who actually not to his credit, against his credit, because when he took that job, I was like, this is a terrible match. He's not going to be Jerry Jones' puppet. No, he's just Jason Garrett 2.0. And we saw with Jason Garrett all over again, where as long as he makes the playoffs, Jerry doesn't care. It's that one year you don't make the playoffs or your ass is fired. So that's the whole thing is like, will this be a disastrous season for the Cowboys where they don't make the playoffs? In which case, 100% agree with you. But no, if they make the playoffs, and as long as they don't lose by 40 in the wild card game again, McCarthy's going to stay because Jerry Jones knows he's got him. So yeah, what was the third thing I was going to, all right, real quick, coach, I wanted to ask you about, because I'm interested in how circumstances are going to affect his job security. Because I thought he was a prime candidate to get fired. Now I'm not so sure. I think I'm getting his first name right. Kevin O'Connell.
Yes.
Does he survive the season?
No, I think with JJ McCarthy, getting hurt, being out for the entire year, I think that sort of saves him one more year.
I agree. But yeah, no, before McCarthy got hurt, I thought he was done for sure. He would have been
definitely all the eyeballs were on him for sure. He had a hot seat for sure. But yeah, with him being out for the entire year, that's like, okay. And then TJ Hawkinson obviously being out for half the year too. So it's like, yeah, there's a lot of things, quote unquote, working in his favor for him to keep his job.
Yeah, no, it's a rare case where a coach is like, oh, thank God he went down.
A little bit, yeah. A little bit of schadenfreude for sure. Yeah, exactly. So, all right, Tal, let's close this out with the, we're talking about, the Dallas Cowboys and their playoff hopes, and they need to get to the playoffs. Well, let's discuss the entire playoff picture for both the NFC and the AFC. So why don't you give me all 7 playoff teams for the AFC? Let's start with the
AFC. Okay, so here are my division winners. The AFC North, Baltimore Ravens. I think the Bengals are going to compete very hard with them, but ultimately I think the Ravens have a little bit more of a complete roster, so I think they get the edge. Miami Dolphins, basically same note. I think the Jets are going to give them a run, but it's not so much that the Dolphins have a more complete roster, because I think there are some very key holes, especially on that defense. However, I think the continuity with Miami is returning largely the same roster, especially on offense, virtually the same offense. So I think that is going to be the edge right there for Miami. AFC West, ready? We'll do it together. 1, 2, 3, Chargers.
Really?
I got to play up to the home crowd. Oh, God, no, absolutely not.
Okay.
No. The Chiefs, obviously, for the AFC West.
Got it.
And the AFC South, it hurts to say, but I think Houston's got this pretty locked down unless Will Levis takes a huge step forward. Even with the Colts being good, Houston's just better. It hurts to say, but they're just the better team. Do you want me to do wild cards as well?
Yeah, give me your wild card teams.
Okay. AFC wild cards, I do think the Jets squeak their way in. The AFC wildcard is going to be tight. It's going to be
interesting. I do like the AFC wildcard picture for sure.
So I think it's going to be the Jets, the Bengals, and I had to do it. I think the Colts will also get in there on the last. It will be first fortune, last game of the season this year. We're getting in, baby.
They're going to get it on the last game of the season. Nice. Okay. So most of my picks sort of aligned with yours. So yeah, for my division winners, I got the Chiefs coming out of the AFC West. I got the Ravens coming out of the AFC North. I got the Texans coming out of the AFC South. And I got the Miami Dolphins also coming out of the AFC East. So yeah, I agree with you completely. That's like the Jets will give them a run for their money. I very much can see them giving a season split with each other. So both those games there, the Jets and the Dolphins, they'll split there. But yeah, I can see the Dolphins sort of winning more games than the Jets to make them division winners in this case and getting that tiebreaker there. My wildcard winners are going to differ from you. So I got the Jets as a wildcard winner.
Fair.
And then the other two are going to come for the AFC West. So I actually got the Raiders and the Chargers making the playoffs as wild card winners here. So
Question. What are you smoking, and can I get an ounce?
I think for me, I think what we saw with the Raiders and just sort of believing Antonio Pierce last year. I know Al Rose probably turning it off by now with me talking about Antonio Pierce here.
He's throwing his laptop through the wall.
Exactly. So what we saw last year, I think that'll carry over for one season. I don't think he's going to have the longevity at all, but I think he'll carry over for one season. Like I said, they'll be anchored by Max Crosby on the other side. I think their defense will sort of carry them through a lot of games as well, for sure. So yeah, I could see them sort of upsetting some teams here and there, and they'll clinch a wild card spot. Probably that number 7 seed, if I'm not mistaken, probably for sure. They'll probably be one of those last teams in. And then the Chargers, it's like Jim Harbaugh's a winner. I mean, this guy finds a way to get it done every single stop that he's been at. We've already went through his resume, winning at the University of San Diego, winning at Stanford, winning with the San Francisco 49ers in a strike year. He took him to the NFC Championship game. He obviously finally won a national title with the Michigan Wolverines, but he's had successful years there as well in his 9-year career in Michigan, I think it was. So,
no, it wasn't that long, was it? You keep talking, I'm on it.
Okay, no way. But it was a long time in Michigan for sure. But just regardless, he's won everywhere that he's been. So yeah, in his first year, I think he could take the Chargers back to the playoffs. But yeah, as a wild card, they're still not at that level to compete for a division crown, with the Chiefs obviously being in that division and them being as strong as they are. But yeah, I could very much see Jim Harbaugh getting the Chargers back to the playoffs with, playing strong defense and running the ball down people's throats for sure.
It was 8 years, so you were close. Good job. 2015. God, the pandemic screwed with my
because I know his last year with San Francisco was 2014, and then right after that, so I got the math a little wrong there. So I thought it was
Chargers honestly wouldn't shock me. I mean, Herbert is still, in my opinion, a top 7, top 8 quarterback, not top 5, but he is still really, really good. I could see him with Harbaugh, like you said, elevating a less than stellar roster to get in there. If a couple, things break their way. Also, I accidentally drafted Herbert last night, so I'm kind of like talking myself into Herbert's success.
Play him up. I like it.
So Chargers, I think, is a little bit more realistic. Do me a favor. Who are the Raiders quarterbacks right now?
Yeah, but I think they'll leave more the run. They'll leave more the run. Doesn't matter if
you're right.
Gardner Minshew and Aiden
You're totally right. You're totally right. And Josh Jacobs is very, very capable of carrying that work. Oh, wait a minute.
I believe in Zamir White.
Yeah, and that's why you're wrong, buddy. I rest my case, Your Honor.
But yeah, so those are our picks for the AFC. Let's get to the other side here, Tad. Give me your AFC division winners and wildcard picks.
NFC.
I said NFC.
No, you said AFC.
No, I said we did the AFC. Now we're getting to the NFC.
Back. Anyway, NFC North, I have the Detroit Lions. This is tight. It's
going to be close.
I'm not entirely
I think this year the NFC North is probably the tightest division. Even with Minnesota a little bit being a little shaky, it's like I think the other 3 teams is going to be pretty competitive.
Yeah. So I think Detroit's going to get it, but not by a whole lot. The NFC East, Philadelphia, I think, has got to own this division. I think Philly's got this by, a chokehold. I think all that drama going on in Dallas is going to be a real distraction. Players can be like, oh, no, we're not distracted. But yeah, you are. Yeah, you are. I used to be a sports journalist. I used to interview you. I saw you guys annoyed when I would start asking about injuries. I know you're annoyed by it. So I think that's going to be a real problem for Dallas. So I think Philly's got that pretty strongly. NFC West, I think the 49ers are going to get it, but the Rams are always going to be the thorn in your side, man. I'm not entirely sure. And here's the funniest part. I don't think they're going to be in play for division. I don't think they're going to be in play for a playoff spot. You know who's going to fuck the season for you guys is the Seattle Seahawks.
They could.
They're going to upset you guys at the wrong time.
I know we're talking about wild cards, but they're definitely a wild card for the entire season. Like, I don't know how they're going to do. They could be really good, or they'll just be absolutely.
But that's the thing. It doesn't matter where they end up on that spectrum, because I'm telling you, there's going to be one game, and maybe they're not even playing you. Maybe it's just like they get upset by like the Cardinals or some shit. It's just going to massively throw you guys off. So that's
happen.
Yeah. So that's going to be interesting. NFC South, shockingly hard to predict, but I think I'm going to go with the Atlanta Falcons.
Got it. Okay.
I think the Falcons made enough immediate fixes that they're going to be good. I think it's going to be very close between them and the Buccaneers, but I think the Falcons are going to win it. And you got to look at the NFC South. There's some crazy stat, like no team has repeated as champions of that division in the last decade.
Yeah.
Or something crazy like that. Atlanta obviously did not finish as champions last year, so it would just be NFC South tradition to go from, bottom of the division to top of the division. So I got the Falcons. Okay. And then in terms of wild card, I have the Green Bay Packers. I think they're overrated, but I think they're just good enough to get in there. The LA Rams, I'll be fascinated to see what they do this season. They're going to be a real wild card, literally. And I'm going to go for it. Matt, Jay, congratulations. Chicago Bears are back in the playoffs, baby. I'm calling it.
Interesting.
Three teams from the NFC North will make the NFL playoffs.
Got it. All right. So my division winners, I got the Detroit Lions out of the NFC North as well. I got the Atlanta Falcons out of the NFC South.
Wow, okay.
I got the Philadelphia Eagles also out of the NFC East. But here's a little bit of surprise. I think exactly like you're talking about with the Niners sort of having a thorn in their side with some of the teams in this division, specifically the Rams. I'm actually picking the Rams to win the division. I think there's going to be, with this whole Brandon Ayuk saga that happened all off season, Trent Williams finally signed a contract today. I think just it's going to be a little bit of a slow start out of the gate, and just throughout the season, I think there's just going to be some stumbles here so often where it's just like, yeah, they're not going to be as sharp as people are going to be expecting them to be. They're still going to be competitive, but just like because of those small falters and those, stumbles, the Rams are going to take advantage of that. I think they got a lot of key pieces on their roster this year, both on offense and defense, that they'll be running all season long. So I got them winning the division. Wild card winners, I got the Green Bay Packers, the San Francisco 49ers, and here's a surprise. The Washington Commanders.
Okay, seriously, you have got two ounces of whatever you're smoking. I need that shit.
I think Dan Quinn coming to this team, they made some improvements on their defense. Their defense is going to be a lot more formidable. We already talked about the NFC East. The Giants are the Giants, obviously, but it's I think they'll surprise both the Eagles and the Cowboys and be very competitive. I wouldn't be surprised if they split every series, with the exception of the Giants. I think they'll get a clean sweep there, win both of those games. But yeah, I think with Jaden Daniels sort of sparking that offense as well, they'll lean more on the RPO. Brian Robinson Jr., I think, will have a great year. Terry McLaurin will have a great year. So it's I think they're going to do enough. Well, they'll clinch a wild card spot as well. But yeah, it wouldn't so shock me either if, like your pick, Chicago, if they make the playoffs as well. But yeah,
either way, both of us having a rookie quarterback making the playoffs in the NFC.
Maybe it's all the CJ Stroud stuff from last year, but it's I'm kind of buying the hype on both these rookies. But yeah, I'm going with Chicago sort of being a little bit less than Washington this year because of that, mainly the defense there with Dan Quinn. So that's why I'm sort of leaning there.
I'm going to correct an earlier statement I made. Let's assume somehow through weird seeding that Dallas plays Washington round 1 of the playoffs. Washington beats Dallas on a last-second field goal. That is how Mike McCarthy loses his job with a close playoff loss, because there's no way Jerry Jones is standing for that shit.
That is fair. That is fair for sure. But yeah, in my scenario, I don't have the Cowboys making the playoffs, and I think that's the reason why McCarthy gets fired.
No, if they don't make the playoffs, he's toast.
Yeah, so that's my scenario here for sure. All right, Tad, so with all of our picks here of our division winners and our wild card winners, who's going to make it to the Super Bowl? Super Bowl 59 in New Orleans.
Okay. You ready for this, buddy? I think it's a classic matchup. And by classic, I mean 90s, which also makes me feel very old because that is now considered classic, which fuck.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be the Cincinnati Bengals versus the San Francisco 49ers.
Your same pick from last year. Okay.
Shit, I did not realize that.
You made the same exact pick last year.
Doubling down, baby. I swear to God, if I repeated the score, I'm going to be so upset.
I don't remember what the score was, but yes, I do remember specifically you picked the Bengals and the Niners last year.
Well, I'm doing it again.
Okay.
I'm sorry, man. Unfortunately, another classic team now. Your 49ers become our generation's Buffalo Bills. You lose your, 4th Super Bowl in 5 years? 3rd Super Bowl in 5 years?
3rd Super Bowl in 5 years, yeah.
3rd in 5 years. So 1 away from the Bills. But regardless, I don't think you pull it out, unfortunately. I think the Bengals just squeak by you 31-24. Reason why is I think that the Cincinnati, not the roster, not the ownership, because ownership doesn't give a fuck. In fact, ownership's probably popping the champagne. They're about to get a lot of these guys off the books. But I think that the Cincinnati roster realizes it's this year bust. This is going to be a totally new Cincinnati roster in a year or two. We don't even know if Jamar Chase is still going to be on that roster.
Yeah, as of right now, he hasn't reported yet.
So I think that they all kind of realize it's got to be this year. Otherwise, it's not going to happen. I think that kind of galvanization can really push a roster through the playoffs. Because a lot of times, if you look, your 49ers proved this last year when he came back from, bullshit 30-point deficit. When you have that rah-rah, kind of that hype going around you at the right time of year, it can do a lot for your team. And I think that Cincinnati has the most to tap in there because truly this is it for their window. I think Cincinnati will not be a contender for another 3 or 4 years after this.
I do agree with you. I could see Cincinnati totally rehauling their entire roster once we get to the offseason. But I think for me, I don't have as much optimism in Cincinnati overall. So that's why, like I said, I didn't even have them picking to make the playoffs this year. I think a lot of people are very optimistic on Cincinnati for purely, I guess, because of Joe Burrow. Like, I mean, that's a little bit too much.
Bro, Chase Higgins is still there. I mean,
yeah, no, it's true. I can understand it, but yeah, I guess for me, it's just I'm a little bit more pessimistic, I guess. Yeah, with Cincinnati. So with me,
you're just scared of them. You're just scared of them.
I'm also going with the classic matchup, though. I'm going to the 80s though with this one. So I'm going with Miami versus San Francisco.
Very 80s. Very all right. Miami Vice. We're back, baby.
Yeah, so I'm going with Miami. So we got a match of Disciple versus the Padawan versus his Jedi Master here with Mike McDaniel coaching against Kyle Shanahan here.
That would be fun.
But I think very similar to that first time that Miami and San Francisco met in the Super Bowl. San Francisco just gets out all their demons and they absolutely stomp all over Miami. They win 42-17 in a blowout victory there in New Orleans. So maybe that's just me trying to put that on the universe. That's like, this is going to happen or whatever, right?
Are you up? Are you awake? Hold on.
Yeah, no, I know. But just, yeah, I'm optimistic. I feel strong about San Francisco coming to the NFC. But yeah, I think Miami, they get things all together, right? They have the key pieces on offense as well as defense. So yeah, I could see them making a deep run for sure.
Both of us have the 49ers making again, though.
Yeah.
Because and that's another thing with the rah-rah thing is I think that roster knows we got to pay number 13 either next year or 2 years from now. So we got to get this shit going.
It's very similar to what you're talking about with Cincinnati. It's like I could see San Francisco going in a different direction once we get to the offseason. It's like we already talked about, like, are they going to trade Ayuk? Now that they signed Ayuk, it's like, now is he still a trade candidate? Or is it going to be Debo? Is George Kittle possibly going to be moved? It's like there's a lot of other external factors once we get to the offseason. And then, yeah, you hit the big nail on the head there. It's like Brock Purdy, it's time for him to get paid. So that is going to affect a lot of their decisions about building through the draft or offseason, free agency, whatever it is. And so, yeah, this could be very much, a lot of people have dubbed this like, the Michael Jordan, the Netflix series, like The Last Dance or whatever. Yeah. A lot of people are picking that for San Francisco this year. So it's like, yeah, if it doesn't happen this year, I'm going to be very much in the boat where it's just like, I don't know if it'll happen for a while after what happens in the offseason. So yeah, I got all my chips on the table here that it'll happen this year. And like I said, they will go out with a big bang and win very convincingly there. But
I don't know why I've never thought of this possibility. God help us if it's ever Indianapolis for San Francisco. I don't think we can do a Super Bowl preview show. I don't think we can do it. It's just going to be you and I screaming at each other for an hour.
We might have to go live during the Super Bowl to do that.
Because, I refuse. Because I promise you, if we end up losing that game, I will never talk to you again.
Oh, wow. Okay. So, but guys, that is our 2024 season preview. We went through our potential award winners. We went through potential head coaching firings. And of course, we closed it with our Super Bowl potential preview and our playoff winners there. Once again, that recap there is Tad has the Cincinnati Bengals and the San Francisco 49ers in that one. But you have the Bengals squeaking by 34-31, if I remember correctly, right?
31-24.
31-24, that's what it was. And I have, in another classic rematch, I got the Miami Dolphins and the San Francisco 49ers, but the 49ers once again repeat in a blowout 42-17. They win that there. So, well, I'm excited for the season to begin. I don't care about all of our predictions.
I already have plans lined up for Thursday night. It's going to be fantastic.
But yeah, it should be fun. I'm excited for Thursday to come here. Obviously, we got the Kansas City Chiefs, obviously, playing the Baltimore Ravens in Kansas City. So, I mean, yeah, it should be a fun matchup to kick off the NFL season. But guys, as the NFL season kicks off, that means your fantasy season will officially kick off as well. So please don't be afraid. You got the ticker coming right down below. Interact with us on all our social media handles. You got us on Twitter, me at @OnTheSide23, Tad at TadSide94. Got the show handle at @DeSideGuys, and of course on Instagram at @DeSideGuys as well. Hit us up, interact with us all season long. Let us know if you need start sit advice, if you need trade advice, waiver wire help. We're going to cover all of that in our weekly episodes. But if you need individual help, we will give you that individual help as well, in case we don't cover anything in a particular episode. So we're here to help you win your respective leagues and win and get some championships as well. Subscribe wherever you listen to our podcast. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. And please, guys, support our Paranorca LAFB network. They're giving you a lot of great content with the season kicking off already last week with the USC Trojans and the UCLA Bruins. They gave you a lot of great content there. And, of course, with the season kicking off on the NFL side, they give you a lot of great content when it comes to the Rams and the Chargers as well. So, guys, lots of great content coming from everybody over there. Lots of great people giving you a lot of great content, too. To everybody who's already supporting our podcast, though, who's interacting with us on social media, who's watching the videos, who's listening to the podcast, who's sending us in questions. I mean, just anything and everything that you're doing to support the podcast, we cannot thank you enough.
And like Amir said, we are hitting a very tight schedule for the next 17 weeks. Sometimes I love it, sometimes I hate it, but for right now, I'm excited. Yeah. Yeah, God. But so that schedule looks like this on Monday nights, weekly from here on out. And we do not, the only time we miss is if one of us is like deathly ill. And I'm telling you, I mean that because I had COVID one time and I still did an episode. So, one of the 4 times I had it. So, 4. Yeah. Thank you for the visual clarification. But so Monday night, we are dropping here, guys, to target on your waiver wire list. Wednesday night, I believe we're sticking with Wednesday nights for Stardom Cinema.
No, we do it later. We do it like Friday. We drop it on the weekend.
For Stardom Cinema?
Yeah.
Huh. Well, we may need to discuss that. But either way, later on in the week, we definitely do Stardom Sit-em. And then either Friday or Saturday, more likely the Saturday, we drop our favorite. This is a YouTube short, though. So for our podcast listeners, you will not be able to get this audio. You got to go to YouTube, LAFB Network channel. We'll attach a link in our YouTube description and our pod description so you can subscribe. And we drop a short, truly under a minute. It's very tough to get done, but our favorite underdog bets for that weekend. So be sure to check out all 3 of those things because we're going to be dropping those fast and often. So be sure to look out for those. And also, if you have any like personal fantasy questions, we may be able to get to those on the show, but we'll definitely be able to get to you on socials or otherwise, YouTube comments as well. So be sure to hit us up there. And yeah, we hope that you guys are just as excited for this season as we are. I know I can't wait. All my fantasy drafts are done. For better or worse, my fate has been decided. So it's gonna be interesting. So let's enjoy the ride, people. Can't wait for a great season. Can't wait for some great interactions with y'all. So as always, y'all, I hit the Texas draw there. As always, everyone, thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching, and please stay safe, everyone.